Welcome everyone back to Spoiler Warning, our wrestling news show covering the great and the good, and we are talking today in our headline story about Seth Rollins and his ever-growing faction taking over the WWE, one match, one blow, one brick at a time. We have plenty more that we're going to be covering as well, so stay tuned for that. We are, Everton absolutely should be appearing on YouTube. There are plenty of people there and chatting. We're of course also going to be talking Chelsea Green, Drew McIntyre, Becky Lynch, Trick Williams, Liv Morgan, and of course a lot as regards what's going on with Travis Scott. So welcome everyone. We do have a Ask Me Anything section here, and we will be answering as many of your questions as we can. But first, we are going to dive into our top story. Welcome everyone on YouTube, welcome everyone on TikTok. Let's start hitting likes and say hi if you've not yet done so. Seth Rollins, the plan is to take over WWE, and this faction will continue to grow. There were reports a couple of weeks ago that there was no intention for the growth of the faction. That is clearly not correct, because at Saturday night's main event 2 days ago, Bronson Reed was added to the group. Now, did this one catch me off guard? Absolutely it did, and I really enjoy being caught off guard every now and then. Bronson Reed is not someone I expected back just yet. One of the reasons he's going to be joining this faction is to protect him by having tag team elements and that sort of thing. So it will be, for example, a group of Bron Breakker and Bronson Reed smashing through people. And it also gives us the fairly obvious addition here of Roman Reigns, CM Punk and Sami Zayn against Seth Rollins, Bronson Reed and Bron Breakker. A very exciting combination, you have to agree. I'm also being told that Paul Heyman is heavily involved in the scripting, as he was for the Bloodline. This is essentially another iteration of a Bloodline story that will take over in its entirety. Seth Rollins is planned to become a world heavyweight champion, but WWE are doing everything they can to ensure that attention is given to Jey Uso in the meantime. It's one of the reasons he's been added to the tag team match at Money in the Bank, and it's one of the reasons that Seth Rollins, as with so many others, is currently trying to develop the next generation of talent. He is one of the people currently on Monday Night Raw who is doing everything possible to ensure people like Bron Breakker, people like Bronson Reed get all of the spotlight. And while Seth himself will still get plenty of it, the majority of matches, the majority of focus will be on Bron Breakker and on Bronson Reed as they move into the next phase of their careers and make huge steps forward in the WWE. Championships are intended. I've spoken about a Bron Breakker versus Seth Rollins feud before, and that is still under consideration. I have to say, a repeat of Seth Rollins versus Bronson Reed is not off the table. In fact, you might suggest, and it's been a while, everything is on the table. For those who only watch on TikTok, that's a thing we used to do quite a lot. I can't tell you why. I really can't. But it was a thing, and it was a big thing as well. Chris is going to watch on TikTok tonight. Thank you and welcome, Chris. Everton says, what's the plan for Cena for Night of Champions as is advertised for the show? Well, we'll have to wait and see on that one. I couldn't necessarily tell you as regards Night of Champions. I'm waiting for that to happen. Aaron says, I guess as you reported about no masks, Wyatt 6 is the go. Yep, the only thing I expected was that the mask would stay for Uncle Howdy. I did report previously that the Wyatt 6 will be losing their masks, and that is exactly what has happened. We may still see the masks in promos, but when it comes to wrestling, the masks are no longer under consideration. Cal says, and thank you for this, Tom reported in February the Wyatt 6 have stories planned ahead for them. It was about both ideas coming together. They have done, and now they're back. It seems like they have finally met in the middle. Hello, Leon. Good to see you, mate. Welcome, Erin. Good to see you. Dylan says, hi, everyone. Welcome, Dylan. Calvin says, hey, Tom. Welcome, Calvin. We have 70 people on the YouTube, 28 likes. If you can, please have a double check and make sure you've hit that like button. Paul says, the worst decision in TNA history. I do have news on this in a moment. To give Trick Williams a TNA title, at least I won't be watching Trick's TNA title run. I hope Mike Santana beats Trick for the TNA title ASAP. Daz says liked and shared. Thank you very much, Daz. And I can see Declan going all in to boost that chat rate. Thank you, Dylan, as well, for helping out. Cal says, what did you think of the big return, Tom? It was another massacre, and the cake was a nice touch. The cake was a lovely touch. Really does say why they returned in the way they did. It was a massacre, but I have some confusion as regards the tag scene. I was not expecting to see the Wyatts entering the tag team picture, but I do suppose I did mention previously that there were plans for a tag team within the Wyatt Six. So that seems like it's going to be playing out. Sid says, were you happy to see Cody return at Saturday Night Main Event? Yes, I was. Very much expected it. I did report previously that Cody Rhodes would be returning in the build-up to a tag team match at Money in the Bank. I will talk about that tag team match and why it is what we are now seeing a little bit later. It is interesting seeing people accuse me of lying because I said Cody Rhodes would be back. Very confusing concept. Everton says WWE kind of ruined the Penta, Gable and Dragon Lee match as Penta is on the Money in the Bank poster, so he wins. It'll be interesting to see if that plays out. First and foremost, Everton, that is exactly how I see it playing out. I think Penta's definitely going to be in that position, but the posters aren't always an immediate giveaway. Damien, welcome, says, is WrestleMania coming to London? I don't believe at this point in time, unfortunately, that the WWE are open to the amount of money being offered by the London Council and the London Mayor. So there are negotiations ongoing, but the WWE waiting for a substantial amount of money for WrestleMania. And at the moment, Las Vegas is the only one really offering it. Now, thank you, Damien, for the free roses. I very much appreciate it. For those not aware, what I tend to do when we have a gift on the TikTok, when we have a donation on YouTube of however many dollars or pounds, each dollar, each pound, each gift is a squat. Last time, so Friday, I did 75 of them. Please don't kill me. Showing off my Udi here. Free squats. So a nice and simple one. Appreciate you, Damien, and thank you kindly for your generosity. Back to the YouTube. Cal says, do you have any Wyatt 6 news? No, not at this point in time. I'm not ashamed to say that sometimes I just don't have any information, and this is very much one of them. Noob says, hello, Mr. Colohue. How are you doing today? Doing well, thank you. I appreciate the check-in. Hope you are good as well. Bailey says, will Becky Lynch join the faction? I have a little more on Becky Lynch soon, and while I think it's still a possibility, there are other things she wants to do first. Dylan says it will be Cena, Paul versus Cody, Jay, or will it be the rumoured, 6-man tag match with Jimmy and Travis Scott at Money in the Bank? They've announced the match, but they can still change it. A little more on that to come. Aaron says, any reports on Damian Priest's next feud? I think Nakamura would be a good shout. I think, unfortunately, Nakamura would be a bit of a demotion for Damian Priest, but with the momentum that he has, I would imagine this is a perfect time for a Damian Priest versus Jacob Fatu feud. Cal says, thank God Bo kept the mask. Declan also asking, will Becky join the group at this point in time? Unfortunately, I have no information as that, but I don't think she necessarily needs it, and there are other things she is considering. Oh, we have a troll, Alex Sanchez, saying, where's the proof? The proof comes after, when it comes true. Everton says, John Cena names his current reign as his future champion as his favourite championship reign of all time. It's very much not, but the man knows what the public expect. Dad says, what's happened to Rey Mysterio? A number of niggling injuries, though hopefully he will be back and ready, but at the moment he's stepping back and letting other people be the focus. Ray says, who do you think will be Cody's returning match? The Money in the Bank match. It's only 2 weeks away after all, so I do expect it to be his first big return appearance. Everton says, advertise for Raw tonight, new War Raiders versus New Day versus Creed Brothers for the Tag Championships. Sami Zayn versus Seth Rollins versus Finn Balor in a Money in the Bank qualifier. Chad Gable versus Dragon Lee versus Penta, also in the Money in the Bank qualifier. Cal says the pop Cody got was crazy. It was so loud, and I can see plenty of hi troll and bye troll in the chat. Thank you everyone for that. Declan says hit the like button if you haven't already. Please do so. Dominic says, hi Tom, does Roxan Perez have a big push and are you going to cover Worlds Collide? I'm not going to cover Worlds Collide. I find it more likely I'm going to cover Evolution now that it's finally been announced. So I find it more likely I'll be covering that one. As regards Roxan Perez, big is relative. So what are you thinking? Sean says, not sure why Seth would want to work the guy that gave him 6 tsunamis and almost ended his career. Well, using the world of Stone Cold Steve Austin, when someone's willing to run you over with a car, that's someone you want on your side. Autumn says, hey Tom, what do you think is next for the Wyatts? It looks like, based on their recent appearances, something involving the tag division, which I was not expecting. Calvin says, I know this sounds crazy, but I thought that we would get an upset and truth would be Cena. Always a possibility, especially with no championship on the line, but I do think WWE tricked people with that one. Hey KJ, good to see you, mate. Dylan says, do you think it'll be Cena versus Jay at Night of Champions? Because if Jay is still champion by the time I get to Crown Jewel, he would be facing Cena for the Crown Jewel Championship. I mean, why not? Seems absolutely perfect. Seems like we've got people ready and lined up, and I think it'd be a good opportunity for Jey Uso, even though I don't necessarily see him winning. The World Heavyweight Championship historically does not win in these scenarios. Thank you, Ryan, for subscribing on the YouTube side. I appreciate it. If you've not yet done so, please do consider subscribing on YouTube or following on TikTok if you haven't. Nice, easy ways to keep up with what we're doing here. Cal says, there's history of Gargano and Candice LeRae for Loomis and Nikki. There is, and quite a lot of history, well worth celebrating. Sid says, when do you think Cody will have another match with Cena? I still think SummerSlam will be the one, as I previously mentioned. Juan says, hey Tom, does Mercedes money winning go if you're reporting on her going to the top of the card? Also, TK has to be careful because if she doesn't re-sign, why give Mercedes everything? It's an interesting one. I suspect if she does win the top championship, she'll have to relinquish the TBS championship. But she was always intending to make the TBS championship mean something more. So it certainly marries up with what I've been hearing personally. Anan says, your current picks for Money in the Bank winner? I'm still going Roxan Perez, though I do think Julia's got a lot going on for her. A lot going on. So I'd be excited about that as a possibility. For the men, I think Seth Rollins is right there. Calvin says, the Wyatt Six has to lead to a feud with DIY and Candice. And the Street Profits and Fraxium were just at the wrong place at the wrong time. I don't think they'll take that lying down, though. I certainly wouldn't. Ooh, where were we? Lot of stuff. Where were we? Read that one. Cal says, also on SmackDown, Alexa said you need friends to pick you when you're down when the Wyatts return. Someone is bitching about Evolution. If you watched the Wrestling Receipts, I made it quite clear when it comes to Evolution, I hadn't heard anything. You can't call that a lie because I didn't hear anything. So it's not a lie. But bless you for trying. Rick says, hey Tom, is Cherry Coke over today? Cherry Coke is always over, but today I'm genuinely drinking a bit of water and a bit of lemonade. Not at the same time. Bailey, I did say there was going to be trolls today. I think you can all work out why. I really think it's not difficult to work out why. Ooh. Chris says, makes sense for the Wyatts going after Johnny Gargano and Candice. Also love Loomis's smile when Howdy provided his sister Abigail to Johnny Gargano. Aaron says, I feel momentum for Becky Lynch seems to have fizzled out. And Everton says, Evolution on July 13th is the same venue as Saturday Night Main Event on July 12th. A lot going on there. A lot going on. Bad Boy says, is Alexa continuing her Charlotte story, or is she now joining the Wyatt Six after Money in the Bank? Waiting on that one. There is still a lot to play out with her and Charlotte. A lot to play out there. But as I have reported, it was sort of made up on the spot, and the creative team don't have a long-term plan for it just yet. Cal says, per PWInsider, Drew will be off TV for the foreseeable. I also have some news to share on that one. Calvin says, predictions for Money in the Bank qualifiers, Chad and Finn. I'm personally going with Seth and Penta. Marcel says, Tom, is there anything known about European pay-per-views or Raw and SmackDowns for next year? Not at this point in time, to my knowledge, though I do still expect a PLE in the UK. KJ says, I see a lot of people saying why would Bronson team with Seth, but people forget why Reed attacked Seth. Reed wanted an opportunity that Pierce wouldn't give him, so created his own by attacking Seth. I mean, if Seth offers him an opportunity, why wouldn't you take it? Reed became a star for attacking Seth. That's what Reed wanted. Also, Punk is why Reed had 2 broken ankles. In War Game, Punk pulled Roman off the table before the tsunami, so it may make sense. I do think hatred of CM Punk unites a lot of people. Anan says, this year WWE are not advertising Survivor Series as War Games. It's a long way to Survivor Series, so I would not commit to anything there. Autumn says, I honestly think both should lose the mask too or get a better one. Cal says, the pop the Wyatt got was so loud, it was louder than their debut. WWE must be very happy. Overall, yes. Whenever someone is over, whenever someone gets that huge reaction, WWE thrilled, because that's the mission, just to get everyone over. Ooh, we have a third troll, but it's getting much, much lazier. Much lazier. Declan says, would the WWE make a swerve for Becky to win the briefcase? Always a possibility. Don't see it happening. Autumn says, we can continue watching the pig now, guys. And Daz also says, watch the pig. Everyone remember the high trolls and the bi trolls. You know why? Because that massively boosts the chat rate. And it gets more people in here. There are 83 people in the YouTube right now, 36 likes. What can we do about that? We can hit that thumbs up button, have a quick check if you haven't already. There are more than 1,000 likes on the TikTok side, and right now there's only the 4 people here, but on TikTok at least, you can just keep pressing that button, whereas YouTube, you only get the 1. And what's Roxanne to win the Money in the Bank? Sid is asking who I want to win. I do think Roxanne, and I'm finding it difficult to look past Seth for this one. Rocky says, I think in Liv versus Roxanne, Liv becoming babyface, so that means it's Alexa versus Liv plans are cancelled. It's difficult to say anything's cancelled. I have mentioned on Friday that I do expect Roxanne to be joining Judgment Day, essentially to help Liv turn face. That doesn't mean it's going to happen immediately. Sean says, bear with, I've just lost track slightly. Mercedes puts on a good match with Jamie, wins, and the IWC lose their minds. Different people have different opinions, and honestly, since getting off that merry-go-round and just sort of leaving Twitter, not being exposed to all of that is wonderful. Really wonderful. And I strongly encourage everyone to get off that merry-go-round because, well, the amount of abuse that everyone seems to get at all times isn't necessary. You can just walk away. You really can. Roy says, I never thought R-Truth would beat Cena. Cool. And Noob says, I find it weird Seth is teaming with a guy that nearly unalived him with a dozen tsunamis. We have a 4th troll. Or, to be fair, they're probably all just one troll. They're just running through all of their fake accounts. Carl says, and Nikki put pictures on X of her and Candice from years ago. They got some history. Sean says, Mercedes has hit 1 full year as champion. It's only getting started. And KJ thinks Roxanne and LA Knight win Money in the Bank. Rohit also asking who I think the Women's Money in the Bank winner will be. Roxanne. Everton says, I think Julia and Penta to win Money in the Bank. Cero Miedo in the bank. Let's go. Also still waiting for the Cero Miro tag team. I like that. I like that. Dylan says, how do you see the Jay Gunter match ending on June 9th? Personally see it ending either with Goldberg returning or a potential cash-in. I think we could do both. We could have a potential cash-in that's interrupted by Goldberg, but I do think Goldberg will be very, very protected in that. And then it looks like Roxanne will be occupied with Liv, Dom and Judgment Day in that case. You don't think Roxanne will win Money in the Bank? I don't think it relates, to be honest. I think only Finn Balor would be the one trying to help, and she doesn't need it. Dad says, who do you see is next for Ospreay after last night? Not sure, to be honest. Not sure. I kind of thought he was going to be winning. I was clearly incorrect. KJ says, Reed constantly tweeting at Punk while gone. Yeah, CM Punk is also desperate to work with Bronson Reed. They've been talking about it for a while, so I think that's where we're headed. Sid says there's been 9 AEW World Champions. John Moxley owns 4 reigns, his current reign being the worst in company history. You pull the trigger on Adam Page all in and do not wait for Darby Allin. That's certainly your opinion. I wouldn't say it's the worst, but I've not really seen that many, and one of them has to be, so to be fair. Everton says we could get a Seth cash-in on June 9th on Jay, but the question is, will he win or will Jay retain? Really trying to bury the lead on that one, Everton. It's a good question. Eric says, congratulations to Mercedes and Hangman. I'm interested in where Hayter and Ospreay go after their losses. Calvin says, I can only assume we get another ATDU interview during an ad break. Hector says, did you actually think WWE was going to pull the trigger on Trick winning the TNA title? Because it was definitely a shocker for me. No, I did not think that at all. I was pleasantly surprised because of the surprise. But yeah, I did not see that one coming. Christopher Leclerc agrees with me on Roxan Perez. KJ says, to be fair, about Survivor Series being promoted without War Games, they did that last year too, and they added the War Games on the road to Survivor Series. People seem to forget that. Historically, that is what they always do with War Games. Sid says, no matter how many people complain about the length of the shows, Tony Khan just makes them longer than the last show. It's that or they do more of them. And for some reason, they've not got around to that. Blue is also eager to have Roxanne as Miss Money in the Bank. Christopher Leclerc saying Prodigy in the bank. Dylan says, do you see the SummerSlam Night 1 main event being Punk, Sammy, Roman versus Seth Bronson, and Night 2 Cena, Cody? I can't guarantee, but I strongly suspect that that is indeed going to be the case. KJ says fans cry about everything on social media. Mercedes being 20 and 0 will definitely cause hate, but it will be better for whoever beats her. KJ also has Finn and Penta tonight. Ishii is here to say, yes, Tom, hope you're okay. Says Wyatt 6 are finally back. Let's go. Someone's very excited. Everton says, will Ospreay has the same amount of world championships in 2025 as R-Truth? 0. Yeah. You don't always have to be a world champion. There's only one in AEW after all. Sean says, do you think Julia is heading for a feud with Zelina since she pinned her in the triple threat match? No, I don't think that's related. I think Zelina was honestly just there to take the pin. Blue says Ospreay will win it eventually in the UK. Daz has Seth and Penta winning tonight. Michael says CM Punk's title reign was the worst. Yeah, that was a difficult one to support. Marcel, welcome. Says, hi Tom, also here watching 2 streams for the support. I appreciate you, Marcel. Having people on both really does help. TikTok is one of those that's very much in a growth period right now. We are still very new to it, and as you might expect, the numbers are not huge. I'm okay with it. We're getting huge numbers of likes, so thank you for that. Everyone who is watching on both sides, I appreciate all of you, because it is meaning that it's easier to find potential new viewers, so thank you. Juan says, hey Tom, I shared your report on Mercedes Money. They just assumed and completely overlooked Nick Khan still saying no to the Money name. Also, Meltzer believes Ospreay lost because of the WWE shots. Completely unrelated. Of course he said that. Of course he did. Tony says Alexa needs to go back to a heel character. Her current character is affecting her aura in front of heel wrestlers too. Don't agree with that. Don't worry about it, KJ. He did say that. It's very confusing for everyone. Juan says, watch the pig and pray the return wasn't just a cheap pop for Bray's birthday. It was not. Proud Dad, thank you kindly for the heart. Everton says the TNA manager didn't look happy with Trick Williams winning. I think they did that so WWE can get Hendry early from his contract. Certainly wouldn't be the way I would go about that. Thank you very much for the gift, Proud Dad. 1 more squat takes us up to 4. Thank you kindly. And if you're currently watching on YouTube, please do remember that if you would like, you can do donations. We did do 75 squats on Friday. Every donation, £1 or $1 will be a squat, so 10 would be 10 squats. Where was I? Eric says, I thought Trick was bound for the main roster. I still think that. Sid says, John Cena is on the Money in the Bank poster. Sean says, since Jordan lost, who do you see dethroning Stephanie Vaquer? I honestly don't know. I thought Jordan Grace would be the obvious choice. I thought that would usher in the next generation. But we're still waiting. I still see Becky Lynch versus Stephanie Vaquer at WrestleMania, but there's plenty of time to get around to it. Declan says, I'm still sad that Becky isn't in the Money in the Bank this year. She has other things to be doing. And Bailey says, does Chris Jericho make another title run in AEW at 55 years old, or is he heading into retirement? A little from column A, a little from column B. Cal says, I'll be honest, the IC and US women's belts are pointless. It's the same matches. It is very repetitive at times. However, it does mean a lot more attention for Zelina Vega, a lot more attention for Lyra Valkyria. So it is creating opportunities. This also leads me very nicely into my next piece of news, which is as regards Chelsea Green. Chelsea Green's position in WWE has never been in doubt, but people backstage in WWE are thrilled with her work. Broken nose and all, particularly the way she kept going through it, her backstage popularity continues to expand. And I do see numerous championships in her future. There is now talk about Chelsea Green versus Tiffany Stratton, and honestly I think that would be the perfect next championship feud, and the perfect next champion. I think this is the perfect time for a Chelsea Green Money in the Bank. Aaron is asking about someone calling me out. Aaron, I didn't see it and don't really care. I know there's plenty of people who really need this drama, who, because of the way Twitter operates, make money from this drama. I don't care that much. People are going to say whatever they want, and I'm also fully aware that right now there are undoubtedly people watching on YouTube ready to go into a Discord and be like, have you heard what Tom Colohue said? Have you heard this thing? Have you heard this thing? And the thing is, I don't have to say anything. They'll come up with some insult and pretend that I've said it. Let them. I live in a world in which people can say whatever they want, and mostly, instead of consequences, they'll be rewarded. Let them. You know what's great for me? Forget Twitter, forget everything like that. Coming here, TikTok, YouTube, to my wrestling show. Being surrounded by my community of positive people, well-informed, intelligent. Give me that any day. There's a reason we've been in and around just over 100 as an average for about 2 years now. It's exactly where I want to be. And you're exactly the people I want to be with. So thank you for joining me. And I'm going to continue now. KJ says people think Mr. Money in the Bank will cash in on the Raw after Money in the Bank because Jay is defending. He's defending on that show because he's tagging at Money in the Bank. I personally believe Goldberg will cost Gunter that match. Christopher Leclerc has got Finn and Penta. Hector says, Tom, do you think there's a real reason they keep bringing back Jesse Ventura? Aside from nostalgia, because him not knowing the rules of the match he's calling is a problem. I don't think we're going to see much more of him. That's all I'll really say. Bad says, Tom, did you agree with PWInsider news on Wyatt 6 leader is Alexa? And now PWInsider has said WWE made new plans for them. What is your opinion on that? Is it not PWInsider who reported that Alexa Bliss wasn't coming back because of a contract dispute? Rick says, after Mania, with most of the tag division left off and now WWE seemingly focused on it, has the morale of the tag division improved? Yes. After the TLC match, apologies were made to SmackDown tag teams, and apologies were very gratefully received. So, yeah, things have definitely improved there. The other Mike says, what's the point of Ospreay continuously talking about the WWE? Give it a rest. I mean, you're talking about it. Certainly people keep talking about him when he does so. To be fair, AEW used to do quite a lot of that. They have definitely calmed it down since. I think Cody Rhodes was probably the most guilty of it. Proud Dad says, thoughts on Sol Ruka versus Stephanie Vaquer? I'd be down. I think Stephanie Vaquer needs to run for a new host of opponents and get quite a few new competitors lined up. I think someone like Sol Ruka could really benefit. Aaron says, I agree, Tom. I used to be in spaces on X where they would dedicate to ripping you out. Yeah, let them. If they're struggling for content and struggling to actually share anything of meaning that badly that they have to start talking about me, let them. Everton says, give the world title to Chelsea Green. Yeah, she could beat Cena. I'm confident. Declan says, I could see Becky dethroning Stephanie Vaquer. Eric said, did you notice for Liv's return it was just her and Raquel? Is she back now? Wasn't where she was. Anan says, any reports on current plans for EO? Currently, apart from Rhea, there's no other feuds which are teased for EO. There will be a few after Money in the Bank. At the minute, they seem to be sort of setting her aside while they wait for new people to step up. Number of the Devil. Have you seen what Sean Ross Snap said about you? No? Sometimes people send me DMs and like, have you seen this? I don't care. I don't care. It means nothing to me. Calvin says nothing against Mike Santana, but Joe Hendry should get his rematch and regain the title next month at Slammiversary, then drop it to Mike Santana. Blue says, will be a heel so Grace can take it off them. Fair, see what you're saying. Juan says, watching the TNA owner make that frown with Trick winning the title reminded me of Dixie Carter making that expression when Bischoff and Hogan changed the booking during the show in 2010. Sean says, isn't Joe injured? Maybe he lost because he needs his injury taken care of. Joe Hendry? Yes. Took me a moment there because I thought he was referring to Samoa Joe. But yes, there is an injury that Joe Hendry's been working through. Ah, yes, Christopher. The reports are that Liv Morgan is back tonight. Gal says Chelsea Green face for months and now it's just Green and Vega. Oh, I get what you're saying. You're responding to KJ. Juan says, let's get the cherry up some more. Appreciate you, Juan. Roy says, Vince Russo said in his podcast, wrestlers need to dress better in WWE and AEW. Yes, because he's definitely the patron saint of style. Yeah, drive-by, that's just, it's a thing that keeps happening and I just let it. Let it. Roy says, underwhelming 2-match? Double or nothing card that Tony Khan booked 9 matches for. Where will undoubtedly be in it for over 5 hours when the show should have stayed at 6 matches and roughly 3. Sean says Stephanie's facing JC Jane on NXT this Tuesday. Juan says PWInsider confirmed another report by Tom Colohue. WWE had interest in Willow Nightingale but not much. Tom told us first. I try my best. Wrestler Fan says, do you see Trish being a part of Evolution 2? If she's available, yes, and she does like to make herself available for these situations. Proud Dad says, how soon do you see Stephanie Vaquer moving to the main roster? No, she's in NXT to work on her English. And ultimately, there doesn't seem to be that much of a problem with it, but you are right. It is about working on her English and getting it up to pace so that she can call matches in the ring. I expect her relatively soon, but I have said that before. This is not me reporting anything backstage. This is me speculating. Everton says, what about a Priest versus Black feud, Tom? Interesting, because I think in both feuds, Priest would still come out the loser, but I think he'd be more protected losing to Jacob Fatu, because he could still beat up Solo and JC Mateo. Oh, where was I? The other Mike says, any word on Jay White and also free Adam Cole? No word at this point. I definitely don't have the level of sources in AEW. Juan says, Tony Khan also said last night he's interested in making AEW women's tag team titles. Great, now Mercedes money wish is coming true. Yeah, she always gets her way. It's part of the deal. It's not part of the deal. Hector says, Tom, do you see Mercedes dropping the TBS title before a match with Tony? Or are we looking towards 2 belts money? We had 2 belts money for a long time. I can see her winning and having both, but relinquishing one. KJ says, reporters just say WWE is interested in everyone, and it just sets WWE up, because once WWE doesn't sign said talent, the AEW fans will make fun of WWE or Triple H for not signing them. Yeah, and I think as well, large parts of wrestling media are guilty of that too. Anand says, there were reports suggesting that Gunther vs Goldberg is planned for next Saturday night main event. I don't see WWE wasting Goldberg's retirement match for a random Saturday night main event. Or they actually really don't like him that much. Bailey says, a Saturday night main event match is seen internationally on Netflix. It's basically a house show now. It's on YouTube. All available in full on YouTube. Oh, I did not know that, KJ. Did not know that. Have to keep an eye. Thank you for calling that out. Paul Simmons says, what is your favourite wrestling show? Mine is TNA Weekly Show. I quite like SmackDown. Quite like SmackDown. Paul Simmons says, what's your... I've read that one. I literally just read that one. Sean says, hopefully we can get Trish versus Alexa at Evolution like we were supposed to with the first one. Yeah. Oh, yeah. They both wanted that one for a long time. Calvin says, Booker T seems salty over what happened between him and Joe at ROW. Anand says, any update on Britt Baker? Last time I heard she was released from AEW. I don't believe that to be the case. That'll be the first I've heard of it. What's your source, Anand? Roy says, Mr. Kennedy says the Undertaker's infamous chair shot didn't hurt and praises Legend's light touch. A lot of people really enjoyed working with Mr. Kennedy. Randy Orton did not. Dan, welcome, sir. A pleasure as always to have you here. Says AEW Dynamite for me is the best wrestling show. The monthly Eve shows are pretty good though. They absolutely are, and I do highly recommend them. You can check them out on YouTube as well, and it's very well worth it. You might also see me in the chat. Not always, because sometimes I like sleep, but sometimes, and I very much like popping up. And you'd actually be able to hear Dan's voice on commentary and put a voice to the Put a voice to the name. Appreciate you, KJ, for calling that out. Eric says, who would you like to see Liv face at Evolution 2? I mean, I think Roxanne's right there. Right there. And Ashley says, Tom, is there a reason why Worlds Collide will be on WWE's YouTube channel instead of Peacock? There's a number of reasons, but a large part of it is that they're looking to see how much interest there is, so they need immediate access to the streaming numbers. Aaron Lewis says, Fightful were adamant about CM Punk not returning. When he did, they backtracked quickly with info. I'm still proud of my reporting on that one. Firstly, the reporting that what we were seeing was him taking advantage of wrestling media to create a narrative of him returning. Then, of course, reporting when he was going to return. Then reporting how it came together, what the WrestleMania match was the moment he did return. Quite happy. But yeah, I also really enjoyed making that short, saying he will not be at Survivor Series. Repeat after me. And just really quite enjoyed their response to that. Thousands upon thousands of views, Thousands upon thousands of views. Mostly hate comments, which meant thousands upon thousands of more views. It's like, come on, guys, you know the basics. Proud Dad, thank you very kindly for a gift. On TikTok. Hey, you're awesome. So once again, as we do, a squat. Because for every gift, for every £1 or every $1 donated, we do a squat. That's 5. We did 75 on Friday. Proud Dad says, how do you feel about no major championships being defended at Money in the Bank? I think there's still time. I don't feel confident. Still time, don't feel confident. Welcome, Andrew, also sending a gift. A rose. I appreciate you for that. Thank you very kindly for your generosity. Have squat number 6. I never do more than 10 at a time, just to be clear. Just to be clear. Andrew says, hi Tom. Hello, Andrew. Everton says, breaking, Becky Lynch versus Lyra Valkyria will take place at Money in the Bank. I don't think anyone is surprised by that. I really don't. I don't think anyone's surprised. I was confident of what would happen during the Money in the Bank qualifier, and now here we are. There was always going to be more than one match. Always going to be more than one. Dan says, if not me, you'll often hear Will on comms too. For those unaware, Will Ospreay, that is. So if you want to hear Will Ospreay on commentary, and in fact, potentially interact with him during the YouTube on the chat, that might be worth it for you. You might enjoy that. Aaron, thank you very kindly. A donation of $5, which means 5 more squats. Please do remember to hit the thumbs up on Aaron's generous donation. Also, a rose from Proud Dad. So that's going to be 6. Thank you very kindly, Proud Dad. Okay, so 6 more squats, which will take us up to a nice 12. So, just in case I lose track, there's 3. Apologies that you can't see my head right now. And we'll do it one more time. And that takes us up to 6. Thank you very kindly. That is now 12. And I appreciate all of you. Thank you, Aaron, for a generous donation. Sid confirms that Britt Breaker is not being released from AEW. I'm still waiting on your source there, Anand. Anand says instead, currently WWE's new format of having only 5 matches per pay-per-view, which doesn't seem so appealing or make stakes that high. Do you have any idea this format is being perceived by public in WWE? Public, by and large, liking it. With WWE, I reported when Triple H came in that the pay-per-views were going to be shorter. He likes a shorter pay-per-view. And in fact, after NXT TakeOver Blackpool 2, he told me that directly. So that's why I'm able to share that. And that is all online. You can find me asking him that question. Hector says, do you have any indication of why WWE decided to have Evolution on a Sunday, not put it on a Saturday like all the major PLEs? Wonder if it was a panic move just to get it announced. Seems so. I wouldn't say panic per se, but they did shove it straight after another one. So I don't think it was the most well balanced. Cavlog says, can an NXT wrestler win the TNA World Heavyweight Championship? Yeah. Have I missed something massively? I'm pretty sure Trick Williams is the champion right now. Ryan, thank you for your first comment. The side note, TNA Wrestling ended up putting their Under Siege 2025 pay-per-view up on YouTube for free. Which WWE Women's Legends do you expect to see at Evolution 2? I say Jackie, Trish, Lita, McCool, T. Wilson. Tori Wilson. I can definitely see Michelle McCool there. She's very closely linked. Trish and Lita always make appearances. I think there'll be a few surprises. I wouldn't mind seeing Kelly Kelly. I think there might be another Battle Royal. Forgot that for a minute. Happy advanced birthday, Christopher Leclerc. Anand says, isn't it strange to keep Saturday Night Main Event and Evolution 2 in the same weekend? What could be the possible reason? More people watching. John says, 75 squats, how are you still walking, Tom? I felt it. But yeah, in addition to feeling it, I also felt fitter. And it's not like it came out of nowhere. I've been regularly doing squats on these shows for about a month now, and it's working out pretty well. Everton says, Becky versus who for the IC Championship at Evolution? I would imagine that'll be the final match with Lyra Valkyria. All comes in freeze. Aaron says he's surprised when WWE stars get released, they win titles in no time. No, being in WWE automatically gives you a very strong reputation. So it's really not hard to find someone more than willing to give you a push in their promotion, because it definitely gives that promotion a push as well. I can confirm PWInsider's report that Drew McIntyre is indeed taking time away from the WWE. This is not the first time this has happened, and in fact I believe it's the third time this has happened. The third time, he got the break when he was supposed to be winning Money in the Bank. The second time, he got a little more time away, and then came back to face Gunther for the Intercontinental Championship at SummerSlam in a relatively brief match. WWE are apparently a little bit concerned with how often this happens and would like him to wrestle a little bit of a safer style. He's not going to do that. So yes, Drew McIntyre has a number of niggling injuries, a number of aches and pains. WWE's medical team are trying to help him through them, but have essentially just told him, take a break, walk away, you've worked too many dates, have some time off, and just see what you can do. To be fair, his contract at the moment does allow him a period of time off for breaks, and allows him to essentially return home to Scotland for a few weeks a year, and he is taking advantage of that. There is no fixed return for him, but I would expect to see him on the SummerSlam card, so I'd imagine he'll get about a month off. Dan Sharp says, hey Tom, I hope you're well, my friend. Yeah, Dan, I've been told that. As regards to tagging, I've had the guy blocked for 5 years. So, like, not in my notifications. Also, it's on Twitter, where I don't go. So, let him. We've had the trolls come in, but I can't exactly say he's ruining my life. Let him. Let him try. Bailey says, if Becky and Lyra are meeting at Money in the Bank, someone else is showing up. I wouldn't necessarily say so. I think this is when Becky wins it. Calvin says, I seriously hope the pops for Austin Theory continue. They won't have any choice at all but to pull a trigger on the split. I've also got a feeling New Day will now play a role. The split is coming. It is coming. And the fact that he's getting so much airtime at the minute says it's coming soon. I'm excited for it. Joey says, what matches do you expect to see at Money in the Bank? PLE Wednesday, this Wednesday, will detail the matches I expect, but several of them have, of course, already been announced. It'll be a 5-match card. We've already got talk of the tag match main event, and, of course, the 2 Money in the Bank ladder matches, so I'd imagine it'll be women's matches from here. Anand says, is Bayley out of action? Surprising to see WWE not having any plans for Bayley at this point. She's not injured. She's just been essentially taken out to build towards a match with Becky. Dan says, fair enough, mate. We trust we're united together. Appreciate that, Dan. Everton says, Julia versus Jordan Grace versus Vaquer versus Lynch is needed down the road. A lot of bodies in that. A lot of boulder shoulders, I believe the phrase was. Dylan says, since the next edition of Saturday Night's main event is in where Goldberg lives, I think that is where his rumoured retirement match is, or will it be SummerSlam? Dan says, I've heard this is the start of Joe Hendry to WWE. It is. I've reported previously about them trying to buy him out of his contract. He's certainly available. He just needs a bit of recovery first. Aaron says, I just want to say the jacket coat you're wearing looks so baggy and comfy. It's a nudie. So, well, I call it my wizard because it's a wizard cloak. It was a Christmas present way back when. I say way back when. It was not that long ago. But yeah, it's real comfy. Real comfy. Joey says, do you know what the plan is for Trick Williams with a TNA title? I got that one next. It's not on next, but let's go to it. Trick Williams, TNA champion. And I've got to say, I did not see this one coming. But This is an evolution of the TNA WWE deal, with TNA now firmly, unfortunately, in the camp of kind of losing out. There are concerns from TNA. Some within the TNA camp are unhappy to know that they're somewhat reliving the AEW deal, with championships now being won by the other side. It does mean potentially being defended on NXT shows, and there is still a plan to do that. But you'll know that TNA are not winning NXT championships. There are others within TNA who are seeing considerably more money coming into TNA than they did during the AEW deal, which wasn't as financially prudent for TNA. Now, TNA is still hoping that they can use this deal to elevate their promotion and compete with AEW for second place. And by and large, they've done okay. But what I will say as regards the TNA deal, they were hoping to be able to convince free agents like CM Punk, like Mercedes Money, and like Will Ospreay to join their company. And they were willing to offer substantial amounts, just not amounts substantial enough to convince the talent in question to come in. TNA wants to compete, and they are using WWE to simply get eyes on the product right now. Long may it continue, because they are delivering something good. But when it comes to Trick Williams, unfortunately, there's not much else I can say. Absolutely right, Chris. Trolls mean more chat rate, which indeed, you've got to remember as well, the trolls also see ads, which means they're literally paying me. Everton says, I think to make it fair, TNA Superstars should win the NXT Championship if NXT Superstars can win the TNA title. I don't think WWE would be willing to take that risk. Thank you very much for subscribing on the YouTube side, Ramboli. First Blood. So somebody likes his Rambo films. I see what you're saying, Dan. I see what you're saying. Aaron says, surely Don of NXT goes to main roster soon? I hope so. He needs something new. Ooh. Rick says, is Netflix happy with the viewership that WWE is bringing to the streaming channel? Do they look at live viewership or more total viewership over a period of time? They look at both. So they look at live viewership because that's something they're looking to move into, but they're more interested in the total viewership because what they care about is how much time you spend on Netflix. You know, they give you that little thing of like, are you still watching? They don't care if you're watching. They care if you're on Netflix. As long as you're there, they're winning. All platforms are doing that at the minute. Paul says, JBL confirms Triple Mania appearance. Comments on, so that's just a headline, is it? Michael says, I saw something fake going around on Instagram about Britt being released. Don't remember what the account was. And before he deleted that, Anande did say that it was just someone who you don't remember on X. It's not a source, mate. It's not a source. Joey says, why were there so many commercial breaks during Saturday Night Main Event? It made the show unwatchable. Nothing else to really say. Good old-fashioned money. Eric says, do you think Evolution 2 will be the best chance for AJ Lee or Saraya returning? We'll have to wait and see. As I say, WWE, very interested. AJ Lee, not so much. Joey said, do you see Julia having a match with someone big at Evolution? I'm not sure. I don't think she's necessarily at that level yet to get the guaranteed big one. Eric says, when does Hendry's contract run out? That's not what the WWE are concerned with. They can essentially buy the contract out, and they are considering doing so. KJ says, maybe Mariah debuts at Evolution. Honestly feel last night may have been a last chance to show up with Tony facing Mina. I don't know, just me. Calvin says, I kind of miss PLEs happening on Sunday nights. It's a good thing to have Worlds Collide and Evolution happening on Sunday, pardon me, with the kids out of school for summer break. I don't know. Being in the UK, I don't miss them being on Sundays at all. Dan says, Ethan Page is very excited about the WWE is going. He feels he can grow as a person. Sean says, I think Indy Hartwell has like 3 titles now after being released by WWE. Joey says, who do you think is a favourite to win the men's Money in the Bank? PLE Wednesdays, we will be discussing that at length. Alan says, any plans for Andrade? Seems like he's lost on the roster. Had an excellent 7 matches against Series versus Mello, but after that nothing seems to be promising plans for Andrade. No, it's really not, is it? Worlds Collide should open some doors. Roy said, did you like Team Hell No? Yeah, I really liked Kane. Can't stand Glenn Jacobs. Really liked Kane. Eric says Drew is bored at work, so I imagine he's going to enjoy his break. Bailey says, what's the weather for Scotland in June? Cloudy. The answer is always going to be cloudy. It's Scotland. Roy says, do you know when Bailey will be returning? I expect that what we're going to see is a match between Bailey and Becky at SummerSlam. Anonymous says, any update on AJ Styles? Fightful hinted a possible deal being done a couple of days ago. Unfortunately, right now, your guess is as good as mine. I've got nothing as regards that. For as far as I'm aware, AJ Styles has not signed a new deal, but there might be an update that I'm not aware of. Dylan says, I personally don't see Seth winning the Money in the Bank. I see Roman returning and costing him. Calvin says, new babyface team pitch, Austin Theory, LA Knight, The Usos, Cody Rhodes, Tiffany Stratton, Jade Cargill, Rhea Ripley, Io Sky, Kairi Sane. That's huge. No one will get any time to actually do anything. Michael says, there's quite a difference between Kenny Omega and Trick Williams. You are not wrong. You are not even slightly wrong. Thank you for the like, Ramboli. I appreciate you. We have 60 likes right now, which is a pretty good number. I reckon we can keep going. Sid says, will you ever do YouTube full-time? I would love to be able to do YouTube full-time. However, these last 2 months have been the highest amount of income I've ever had from YouTube. It peaked at, the most I got was for last month, was about $210. I cannot live off 170 quid a month. I can't. And I'm also not going to be the guy sitting here saying, hey, in order for this, you have to give me money. You have to give me money. I'm never going to be that guy. Never. So I'd love to. Would love to. But unfortunately, right now it is simply unfeasible. It is one of the reasons we're also doing stuff on TikTok, of course. So there are many ways you can support. Sometimes it's even just sharing, letting people know what we're doing here. There's also many ways that people try desperately to stop me from growing. You've probably seen it all over social media. People try desperately to stop me from ever being full-time. Thankfully, I've got you guys trying to push back. No worries, Dan. You go sort that out. Appreciate you dropping in, mate. Aaron says, Alistair Black triple threat seems to have done nothing for him. No, but at least kept him on TV. I'm sure we'll get more. Where was I? Pink Leotard, Aaron Ferreira just says, R-Truth. Alan says, do you think we see TNA versus NXT Survivor Series kind of matches? No. Michael says, so much for Joe Hendry getting eyes on the product by getting squashed by Randy Orton. Yeah. Eric says, any news on where Ace Austin goes? I've not heard anything on that myself. KJ says, hot take, since he mentioned TNA trying to get big name free agents, I think Andrade would be best in TNA, as he struggled in both WWE and AEW. Thank you for the 2 likes. Very nice. Thank you. Rick says, is WWE still planning on forming the Bullet Club group of Cody, Finn and AJ? There is talk of that. I would imagine this is WWE trying to tempt AJ into signing a new deal. KJ says, there's always a lot of commercials. Raw has less as on Netflix, but SmackDown is 3 hours, unlike Saturday Night Main Event. There's always been a lot of commercials. Calvin says, when will Kiana James return? And Calvin says, do you think Paige would consider coming back to WWE? I've reported on this extensively. Yeah. And then says, since the TNA WWE partnership started, first Jordan Grace went from TNA to WWE. Now reports of WWE interested in Joe Hendry. Does TNA can afford to continue this partnership as they are losing its stars? Yes, because they're getting people back. Sid says, did you like Dutch Mantel in WWE's Jack Swagger's manager? Didn't watch that period, I tell you. Declan says, could we see Becky winning the Royal Rumble next year? Anything can happen. I don't expect so. Sid says, what is your favourite gimmick in 2025? Mine is timeless. Tony Storm. Timeless. And I cannot argue. Becky Lynch. Becky Lynch is looking to play a similar overall story to what Seth Rollins is doing. And as such, there's been discussion about a potential faction building around Becky. However, Becky Lynch herself is the one planning most of this out and working with creative to ensure the attention is on her opponents rather than her. It's believed that Becky Lynch does not think it a good move to have a faction when she can work one-on-one. She's eager to work with a number of people lower down the card. She's working with Lyra Valkyria now, as you know, and it was her idea to have multiple matches to make sure that Lyra Valkyria gets more exposure in front of the fans. Beyond this, the WWE have told her she'll be wrestling Bayley, but I do believe Becky's true interest is in getting back to those lower down the card opponents. It does look like there's going to be a bit of a yo-yo, in which we're going to get a lot of Becky Lynch at the big shows wrestling big names, and at the smaller shows wrestling the smaller names. Becky Lynch and Seth Rollins are taking over WWE, and they are the ones scripting it, which I always find very intriguing. Ryan says, since Rusev is back with WWE, will we ever see Lana return to WWE as well? She's interested. I don't believe they are. Dylan says, do you see Punk having a match at Money in the Bank, either against Braun or Bronson? I do think we're going to see Bronson Reed versus Punk a few times. I don't necessarily think it's going to be Money in the Bank, as they rotate people in and out. Sid says, I hated seeing too much of Robert Stone at TNA Under Siege. Robert Stone sucks. Anand says, what do you make of Alexa Bliss and Charlotte segments? Alexa was rumoured to join the Wyatt Six. If yes, then how are WWE planning to use Charlotte and Alexa segments? I've reported on this at length. At length on this one, just to be clear. So by all means, go back and check. Liv Morgan has now wrapped on filming and is expected to return to WWE imminently, just in time for Roxanne's work with Judgment Day. Roxanne was added to Judgment Day with the intention of turning Liv Morgan heel in a way that keeps Liv and Dominic Mysterio together. It opens up a lot of options for them, even though they're still not determined to make that the only option that they go for. When it comes to Dominic Mysterio, fans are really getting behind him. However, the intention was to turn Finn Balor face and align him with Cody Rhodes and AJ Styles. The popularity of Dominic Mysterio and of course of Liv Morgan could well prevent a Bullet Club pairing of Cody Rhodes, Finn Balor and AJ Styles. So WWE weighing their options and seeing what the fans get behind, but Roxan Perez is there to act as a foil for Liv Morgan. These two are not going to be friends. They're really not. We have one piece of news left to share. We're on 6,400 likes on the TikTok side. Thank you very kindly. 63 likes on YouTube with 94 people currently in the chat. We peaked at, I believe it was about 111, 113, which is bloody good so far. Bloody good so far. So thank you very much, everyone. Schedule going forward, we will, of course, be hosting a PLE Wednesday this week, which will detail matches planned for Money in the Bank. We'll also be hosting a PLE Wednesday the week after, which will be last minute news and spoilers going into Money in the Bank. So please do subscribe on the YouTube side if you haven't already. We will be live for a watch party during Money in the Bank. During that show, we'll also be creating a lot of content for TikTok. We received about 250,000 views on TikTok during Backlash, about which I am, as you might expect, very jealous. It would go really well on YouTube. If I could get that, I'd be basically, I'd make enough money from that one video for about a year of programming. But instead we get it on TikTok, where I'm still growing and still doing well. So we will continue to work on both the YouTube and TikTok sides, because over the course of WrestleMania, we had around 2 million views on TikTok. 2 million views. We will be live on YouTube during Money in the Bank and actively creating content on the TikTok side while doing so. So please check all of those out as we get closer to the time. Cody Rhodes and Jey Uso versus John Cena and Logan Paul has been planned despite all of The Rock's efforts to push Travis Scott, because Travis Scott himself isn't believed to be a strong enough wrestler as of yet, and Triple H is simply not willing to take the risk of throwing him into the mix. They are also working as long and hard as they can to ensure that Jey Uso gets as much of a push as he can before the championship inevitably goes to Seth Rollins, and the Cody Rhodes-Jey Uso partnership feels an obvious choice. Logan Paul recently signed a new deal, which is added to a lot of matches. He'll only be wrestling for a few of them. I'd imagine around SummerSlam he will wrestle his last match for a while before returning, as he inevitably does, for the Royal Rumble. But WWE managed to get him to sign on for a few more matches this time, and they have naturally taken advantage of it. So Cody Rhodes and Jey Uso versus John Cena and Logan Paul is planned for Money in the Bank, as we head towards a John Cena versus Cody Rhodes rematch at SummerSlam, as first reported here on the Tom Colohue channel. No friendship bracelets, no, although it'd be very funny if they were. Sean says apparently Tiffany calling Charlotte and Alexa vintage is cooking them on the mic. Really not, but you know. Arctic Arcade says ask her return. She's not quite cleared yet to my knowledge. And says, if you left X, it's been a long time since your tweet there. Yeah, I haven't been there this year. I occasionally pop in if I see I've got a DM. But yeah, funnily enough, people get really bold and start calling you out on Twitter when you're not on Twitter. Funny. That's going to be our show. We've been live for now. We've gained some subscribers. We've gained some likes, some views and some donations. And we've gained a lot of news about what's coming up in the world of wrestling. We will be back for Wednesday's PLE Wednesday. And of course, the spoiler warning on Friday. Till then, I've been Tom Colohue. You've been fantastic. And I'll see you all very soon.